So for this past week, I've actually been rather relieved to have something delightfully dinky stashed inside of my pants. The Xiaomi 14 may be small, but it is immensely satisfying, packing a similar punch to oversized heavyweights like the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, with the added bonus that you won't need fingers like a sodden eye to actually use it one-handed. Now, I've had my SIM card stashed in there for 7 days, so here's my in-depth Xiaomi 14 review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, I always look forward to reviewing Xiaomi's regular flagships every year because it's such a breath of fresh air. It's the same feeling I get every time I leave Milton Keynes. This is one of the very few sub 6.5-inch smartphones you'll find in 2024, so even though it's not technically mini or compact, it is blissfully easy to use one-handed, and you even do get a dedicated one-handed mode as well, which as always I struggle to actually activate. Oh god, Ed Sheeran, kill it with fire! That 6.36-inch display pretty much fills the front end of the Xiaomi 14, very little wasted space, no big chin action or anything, it's the anti-Jimmy Hill phone. And it's certainly got a good weight to it as well at 193 grams. Apparently the global version of the Xiaomi 14 has Gorilla Glass Victus up front. It does tend to scratch up a wee bit, but thankfully Xiaomi has slapped a screen protector on there. And it's also IP68 water and dust resistant. So on the Statham scale, the Xiaomi 14 scores a respectable 3.5 ball ninjas out of 5. I have noticed one or two tiny little nicks after a week of use, so if you want to keep your Xiaomi 14 pristine, I recommend slapping on a condom cover. Now around back, the Xiaomi 14 sports 3D curved glass in Xiaomi's own words. As you can see, there just tapers at the edges. And as you can see there, it's a highly reflective finish as well. Quite handy if you want to check your hair or make sure you haven't got any old bits of doner meat stuck in your teeth before you stroll into a meeting. And you can grab this Xiaomi blower in a selection of 3 different colours, black, white, or this lovely jade green model, which I believe is the same selection as last year's flagships. My memory hasn't been completely buggered from the endless substance abuse. And I believe that frame is either matte or shiny, depending on which model you choose. My jade green one is quite shiny, as you can see there, which means it's a bugger for picking up fingerprints. And the same goes for that arse end. I swear I'm not a greasy person in general, but as soon as I pick this thing up, basically it's just coated in grime and cack. Now the software stashed on here isn't too surprising. You've got Android 14, of course, but then you've also got Xiaomi's fresh out of the oven new HyperOS launcher slapped on top of that. Of course, any MIUI fans of yesteryear will immediately be struck with a strong sense of deja vu upon launching this up, as basically Xiaomi has rebuilt MIUI from the foundations up to make it more streamlined and efficient. And yeah, this certainly feels smoother now, and it takes up less storage space, which is always nice, but if you didn't get on with MIUI, guess what? You're not going to be suddenly dropping to your knees and weeping tears of sheer ecstasy at how great HyperOS is. I mean, it's essentially like upgrading from call-in logger to call-in export. So as usual, you've got a dedicated control center, iOS style, so you can quick access your smart home goodies and all kinds of toggles. And all those classic fan favorites like the dedicated gaming mode have also made a grand return. But anyway, if you want to know more about HyperOS, well, no worries, your Uncle Spurt has you covered. I've done a full dedicated video all about it, how it compares with MIUI, the best new features chucked in there, all that good stuff, so go check that out. And if you're already a HyperOS whiz, well, all you really need to know is that here on the Xiaomi 14, it's been very well behaved. I haven't seen any weird glitching, I haven't seen any apps crashing, any untoward behavior like that. And this is pre-launch as well, so that's pretty bloody impressive. Unfortunately, Xiaomi does still love to dump tons of crapware onto its smartphones. And just excess bits. So for instance, you've got 3 browsers on here, Chrome, Opera, and then Xiaomi's own Mi browser. I mean, thankfully, any stuff you don't want, you can quickly get rid of. Yes, my old nemesis, Facebook and Booking.com can bugger right off as well. And Booking.com now joined by Trip.com. Gah! But in happier news, Xiaomi has finally taken software updates a lot more seriously, so you can expect several years of OS upgrades and security patching. And now let's have a bit of a squint at that compact 6.36-inch AMOLED display. And this has been upgraded versus last year's flagship to a 1.5K resolution, 2670 by 1200. And on a screen this compact, that makes for some mighty fine detail. 460 pixels per inch to be precise. You got full HDR streaming support in the likes of Netflix as well. That's Dolby Vision as well as HDR10+. so you can expect some gorgeous, crispy, beautiful contrast. And you can also tweak those colors to make them really slap if you're not a fan of the Pro mode that is chosen by default. Now apparently the Xiaomi 14's screen hits 3000 nits at peak brightness, but only when viewing HDR content in extreme conditions. Regardless, it is certainly bright enough to use outside even on the sunniest of days, as I decided to test out by buggering off to Spain, where they don't have a permanent blanket of grey mask in the sky. And this screen also dips to eye-pleasingly low levels at night, and I had no issues whatsoever with the auto brightness. And of course, as you would expect from a flagship phone in 2024, it's LTPO tech as well, so that refresh rate can drop as low as 1 Hz when you're not really doing anything, and scale all the way up to 120 Hz for a super fluid viewing experience. And I'm also a big fan of the stereo speaker arrangement here with full Dolby Atmos support. Pumps out some pretty crisp audio even on that top volume, which hits a surprising high. And some occasional wee bits of distortion when I was just watching a bit of Netflix or whatever on peak volume. But if that bothers you, the Bluetooth chop's absolutely perfect on here. And it's the expected incremental upgrade as far as performance goes. The Xiaomi 14 is of course run on that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So it certainly beats that other mini hero, the Samsung Galaxy S24, when it comes to sheer grunt, at least here in Blighty, where of course Samsung's blower is powered by its own Exodus chipset. And that's backed on the Xiaomi 14 by a respectable 12 gigs of RAM. So yeah, the everyday experience perfectly fine. But what about gaming? Well, I smashed my way through several hours of Genshin Impact, running about the place, invading other people's territory and bonking them in the face. I still don't know what I'm actually supposed to be doing, but I did find it all very enjoyable, helped along by the perfect performance here. Even on the highest graphics setting at 60 frames per second, I didn't notice a single dip in that frame rate after hours of gameplay. And stuck rigidly to that 60 FPS level. I did notice that the Xiaomi 14 started to get pretty warm up near the top end after around sort of half an hour of playtime, but thankfully this didn't seem to have any impact on the performance. And that dedicated gaming mode is fantastic as well. You can swipe it out at any point like so, give your performance a quick boost and turn on the likes of Do Not Disturb. You can record the action. Quite a few nifty little features in there. And no issues at all with connectivity either. As you'd imagine, you got full 5G support, Wi-Fi 7 support as well. I found that websites loaded nipply, video streamed perfectly when I was out and about. So yeah, everything on the performance side gets a big fat thumbs up from me. And the battery tech, also an incremental upgrade here, but it's good to see any upgrade at all, really. Xiaomi has still managed to increase the capacity of that battery ever so slightly to 4,610 milliamp hours, and now charges slightly faster as well. And the battery life is sublime, frankly, for a smartphone this sort of size. I found that most days I finished with around 30 to 40% battery life remaining after many hours of screen on time. We're talking like 5 to 6 hours of mixed use, plus plenty of background audio streaming. So if you push it, you really can get 2 days of life from a single charge of the Xiaomi 14's battery. However, gaming on the likes of Genshin does drain the battery pretty fast, as does video chatting on the likes of Skype and Zoom and whatever. So I did find the one day that I almost fully drained the Xiaomi 14's battery. I spent a good hour or so gaming, I spent about an hour Skyping and lots of other use as well. And I still only managed to get it into the battery saver mode. And then you've got Xiaomi's 90-watt hypercharge tech stuffed on here as well, so no worries if you are running low during the day at any point. Just half an hour with the cable bunged in it and it's basically back up to full. And then as if that wasn't enough, you've also got 50-watt wireless charging support, so again, bung it on a supported pad and you'll be back up to full in a jiffy. So let's finish this lovely wee Xiaomi 14 review with a squint at the camera tech, and the optics have actually been completely overhauled for this model versus the previous flagship. So now you've got a 50 meg main camera with a Light Fusion 900 sensor and a Leica f1.6 lens. And apparently this arrangement can suck up 80% more light than the Xiaomi 13, which means brighter night shots despite a very nippy shutter speed. And certainly in low light conditions, my test photos were bang on. Finely detailed but not over sharpened, with a good stab at accurately reproducing those colours. In both good and bad light, I did get some blurry shots where my subject wasn't quite still enough, but those fuzzy pics were pretty much the only ones I had to chuck. Even strong contrast didn't make the Xiaomi 14 destroy its Y-fronts in terror. You certainly won't see any blanching here. And when you're shooting in the photo mode, you've got a choice of either Leica Vibrant or Leica Authentic. So as you can see, easy to toggle between the two with just a quick tap up here. It can brighten up your pics, make those colors even more striking and bold, but I preferred Leica Authentic. Really love the natural, realistic look and results you get. And the Xiaomi 14 also boasts a 50 megapixel telephoto shooter, 32 megs of which can be used to capture images. And this is actually that floating 75mm Leica lens found on last year's Xiaomi 13 Pro, so it is a step up from the regular Xiaomi 13. This caps off at 60 times zoom rather than 100 times like the 13 Pro, and that is more than good enough for pretty much any situation, although photos do get a bit pixely above the 30 to 40 times area. It's once again great for low light shots, and here's some zoomy type situations for you to gaze at admiringly. And last up, you've also got yourself a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter. And again, no complaints here from me. It is one of the better ultra wides out there, once again offering you a choice of Leica Authentic or Vibrant for that finish. You got consistent tones and accuracy when you switch to this from the primary shooter. And as always, as you'd expect from a Xiaomi Blow, loads of different camera modes and toggles to play around with, but I do like how neat and how one-handed friendly this app is. Bonus camera modes include, of course, the obligatory stuff the likes of portrait, which works really well for capturing a nice bokeh style background effect. Naturally, you have yourself a dedicated pro mode as well, again with loads of toggles. This includes the ability to shoot in RAW format, and you've also got a 50 meg high res option. And lots more camera modes, unsurprisingly tucked away in the More section, including that dedicated night mode. Although I found I didn't actually have to switch to that very often at all because the general photo mode worked really well. And you got a high-res 50 meg mode tucked away in there too. Now for your video related shenanigans, you can shoot 4K Ultra HD footage at 24 or 30 frames per second. That's with HDR enabled. If you knock off the HDR, you can actually bump it up to 8K resolution. For my test footage, I mostly stuck to 4K resolution at 30 frames per second with HDR enabled, and I was more than happy with the results here. That footage stays nice and stable, you got plenty of crisp detail chucked in there, and there's a quad mic setup on the Xiaomi 14 for picking up audio from every direction, and this works an absolute charm. Here's a good bit of test footage that I shot while pottering around Barcelona anyway, so you can check it out for yourself. Even in low light, it came out pretty bloody well. And then last up, my favourite, selfies, hooray! And you've got a 32 megapixel selfie cam stuffed on the front end of the Xiaomi 14. With usual voice shutter and palm shutter shenanigans. And yeah, I'm not the world's biggest selfie fan, but these photos seem to look okay. My face doesn't look too terrible. Certainly get plenty of finer detail, even in quite low light situations. All those lovely forehead lines still clearly visible. And if you wish to shoot some video with that front-facing selfie camera on the Xiaomi 14, well, it records at up to 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, Bananarama. And again, that audio pickup absolutely fine thanks to the quad mic setup. And there you have it, my lovelies. That is my full, final, frank review of the Xiaomi 14. Absolutely one of my most favourite compact smartphones. It may be a bit of a mucky pup with that shiny design, but the absolutely smashing performance, the excellent battery life, the highly dependable camera tech, pretty much everything about this dinky wee blower I adore. The fact that I can slip it into my jeans without giving myself a hernia is just an added bonus. Anyway, that's what I reckon of the Xiaomi 14. It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Hoping to get some hot Xiaomi 14 Ultra action on the go soon, as that is coming to the UK as well. Sadly, no sign of the Xiaomi 14 Pro just yet though. Please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.